Rings are great until you don't have one. Here are 5 beginner-friendly ways on how to start a macrame plant hanger without a ring, ring-free, and stress-free. Here and welcome to BOCHIKNOT Macrame. In this video, I will be going over 5 beginner-friendly ways on how to start a macrame plant hanger without a ring. While you may think that you need a ring to start a plant hanger, you don't necessarily need to. There are actually a lot of pros when it comes to starting a macrame plant hanger without a ring and just using basic macrame knots. A lot of times using these knots to create loops to start a plant hanger makes it even more sturdy, meaning you can use a plant hanger to carry a heavier plant pot, and you can customize the loop handle to your personal preference and the overall design of the plant hanger. If you're looking to start designing and creating your own macrame plant hangers, this video is for you. And without further ado, let's jump right in. So to demonstrate each of these different ways to start a plant hanger without a ring, I will be using several relatively shorter strands of cords, around 100 to 150 centimeters, just to show you how the pattern works. If you're going to use any of these methods to make an actual plant hanger, depending on the actual design of your overall plant hanger, you may need to add more cord to your cord lengths. So for the first one, we're going to start with a square knot loop. So I'm using 4 strands of 120 centimeter long cords that I have. And I'm going to mark the middle spot. And I'm just going to pin or tape down right above it, so we know where the starting point is. This is right in the middle. So taking the outer left and right cords, we're going to make a square knot. Now, something to consider is with square knots, of course, you will use up more of your outer working cords than the inner cords. We're not making too many to have it like much shorter, but you can, if you are using this method, have slightly shorter anchor cords so that once you're done making the square knot pattern, all of the cords should be relatively equal in length. And then we're going to make another square knot. So what we're going to do is we're going to make several square knots on this side, and then we're going to turn the pattern to the other side for a few square knots on the other side. Now, depending on how many square knots you add will determine the size of your square knot loop. I think what I'm going to do is add 5 square knots on both sides. So here you can see I've added 5 square knots here. And so now we're going to switch it to the other side and add 5 square knots on the other side. So we're right in the middle. So now on the other side, we have to go the opposite direction. So like so, and then like so. Two. So we've made 2 square knots now. So now we're looking on this side. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 1, 2. So now that we have our square knot pattern in the middle of our cords, we can now fold it over. You can see it turns into a really nice sturdy loop. And then this is where we can use our slightly shorter cords. Using a 40 centimeter long cord, we're going to make a large gathering knot. So make a loop and then take the long end. I like to have a bigger gathering knot for plant hangers, just so that it stays nice and sturdy. So we've made several loops around. Then once you're at the bottom, and try to fit this cord end through the loop. Push it through, pull it through at the bottom. Make sure it's nice and snug when you wrap around the gathering knot, and then we pull the cord up and underneath through the gathering knot. You do want to make sure that it's hidden underneath, so it doesn't come undone super easily, like so. And then we cut off the excess cords. And now this is method number 1. So for the second method, I'm going to be using the Lark's head knot. Specifically the vertical Lark's head knot. So I'm going to be using 3 strands of cord at about 120 centimeters long for this demonstration. Now, depending on your plant hanger, all of these methods should work. If you need more cords for your overall design, say you're making 4 plant hanger posts and you need 4 strands each, for any extra cords that you need, you can use them as filler cords for this pattern. So you really just need 1 cord that is slightly longer to make the vertical Lark's head knot loops to start off the plant hanger. So I'm just using, for the purposes of this demonstration, 2 filler cords and 1 working cord that will be longer for the vertical Lark's head knots. But you can always add more filler cords if you need. So to do this, we're going to find the middle of all 3 cords. And I like to hold the middle spot, pin or tape that part down. I will be using the far right cord as the working cord, and then the left 2 cords as the anchor cords. So what we're going to do is bring the working cord on top, through, tighten. We went over, so now we're going under. And then that's our first vertical Lark's head knot. And all we're gonna do is just repeat this pattern several more times. So you can make as big of a loop as you want, depending on how many vertical Lark's head knots that you add. So I think I'm going to add maybe 5 vertical Lark's head knots. Now, it is important that if you're using this pattern to make sure that your working cord is much longer than your anchor cords, so that you don't end up with a much shorter cord for the rest of your plant hanger pattern. You can always test it out by seeing, because it all depends on the thickness, size of the cord you are using, how many filler cords you plan on adding will determine how long of a cord you need, but you can always test it out for 5 vertical Lark's head knots with a strand of cord and see how much cord it took up to make those 5 vertical lark's head knots, and then calculate your cord lengths based off of that. So now we're done on this side. We're going to turn it to the other side because we want this right in the middle. And then now we're going to use the same cord, but now it's on the left side. But same thing, over and through the left, and under and through the left. So we're going to do this 5 times. So over through the left, under through the left, over through the left, under through the left. Okay, so now that we're done, we have our vertical lark's head knot loop. I like how it's smooth looking on one side. On the other side, it has a nice little chain pattern, which is great. It is a sturdy pattern, so the more cords you add in as filler cords, the thicker and sturdier it will be. This is just a demonstration, that's why it looks smaller, but typically you will need more filler cords for an actual plant hanger design. And then again, using a 40 centimeter long cord, we're going to make a large gathering knot. So, making a loop. With one end, take the second cord, which is the longer cord end, and start wrapping it around. You may also, 40 centimeters might not be enough. If you have more filler cords, you may need a 50 to 60 centimeter long working cord for your gathering knot. So once we've placed the end through the loop, pull on the top end to tighten, and then I like to just see there's a little bit of gap there. Pull on the anchor cords to tighten everything up. So that got rid of the gap, and then we can now snip off the excess. And this is our second method, vertical lark's head knot. The next one we're going to go over is a 3-ply braid one. So this one has to be made in multiples of 3. So you can either use 3 cords, 6 cords, 9 cords. Now it really depends on your overall plant hanger design, but what I have here is 6 cords, an even number for the plant hanger posts. So we're going to mark the middle spot. So I'm using 150 centimeter long cords for this particular demonstration. And what we're going to do is mark the middle spot, but we're going to mark it slightly above. And that's where we're going to start the 3-ply braid. So we're going to have about a 6-inch or 5-inch, 5 to 6-inch 3-ply braid, and we're going to use 2 cords for each group. So I've gathered the 2 cords side by side to make the 3-ply braid. So we're going to alternate the groups. Make sure we re-tighten them after every knot or braid we tie. And then we're just going to continue all the way down. You see how every time I move a group over, I'll make sure it's nice and snug before I continue on. That will help make the braid stay nice and tight. Since you do want a tighter braid, this is not a super sturdy knot. And then once we're done, this is what it looks like. Just grab the other side. And then we have a nice 3-ply braid right here. Now, my cord ends are pretty even. If yours aren't, you can adjust the braids on whichever side to make sure it's even. And then of course, we will finish off with a gathering knot. Now, another method instead of using a gathering knot is just with a large overhand knot. And what you would do is take the cord ends through and then tighten it so that it becomes a big knot. Now this is only if you want a large knot like this. I don't really like this with so many cords. If you want something that is just easy and simple, an overhand knot can be used instead of a gathering knot. But what we're going to do here is secure the bottom with a gathering knot. So using another 40 or 50 centimeter long cord. I think this one was closer to 50 centimeters because we're using a bit more cord to gather inside. So put the cord through the loop and then pull on it so it goes underneath, and then we can snip off the excess. And we have a nice little 3-ply braid to start off this plant hanger. The next one we're going to go over is the crown knot loop. Now I really like this one because it is pretty sturdy. The crown knot can be a little bit confusing to make at first, but I will show you how it's done. Now for a crown knot, we typically use 4 strands of cord to make a crown knot, or 4 groups of cords, which is similar to the braid. The braid is 3 strands or 3 groups. The crown knot is 4 groups. So depending on how many cords you want for your overall plant hanger, it has to be in a multiple of 4 to make the crown knot. So I'm just using 4 cords for this demonstration, but if you need 8 strands or 12 strands, we'll group those cords into groups of 4 and then use those groups of cords to make the crown knot. So what we're going to do is, I'm using 4 strands of 150 centimeter long cords. I'm marking where the middle is. Then I can tape down just above it. So the crown knot is not too bad once you get the hang of it. Now, what we're going to do is, it doesn't matter which cord you start off with, but we're going to need a strand of cord in each direction. So I already placed one above. So north, east, southwest, we have one in each direction. And I always start with the top one. So we fold it down on the right side, fold the right side over, like so, then the bottom up. It has to be above the other cord as well. And then lastly, the left one through the original. And then once we have a square like this where everything is looped together, we pull on all 4 ends to tighten. And this is the first crown knot. And you know you've done it right when it looks like this, where it's perfectly overlapped through each of the sides. Okay. And then all we have to do is repeat this over and over, and you will see at the end what the crown knot looks like from the side. So this one's curling, but it's like this. Right one over, bottom up, and then the left one through. So we have the square pattern again. And then our second crown knot is complete. So I'll show you this one more time, and then you can practice by making several of them on your own, and then we'll come back and see what the end result looks like. You can already start to see on the sides, it looks like this loopy chain pattern. So we've made 3. We can make perhaps 5 or 6 more on this side, and then we'll come back and see what it looks like. Okay, so I've actually made a few more than I originally said I would. I said 5 or 6 more, but we made the original 3, and then I added 9 more, so that I made a total of 12 crown knots on this side, just because you want to gauge how big your loop is. So a total of 12 crown knots is what this looks like. And now we're done the pattern on this side. You can see it's a nice little chain spiral. And we're going to flip it around and do the same thing on the other side. We're going to add another 12 crown knots. So again, doesn't matter which cord we start with, but start them in all of the directions, top down, right one over, bottom up, and then the left one through the loop. Then once you tighten them, tighten all 4 strands, you should get a little square looking pattern. And then that's what we're going to continue doing. So make another 11 more on this side. Okay, so once all 24 crown knots are made, this is what the pattern looks like in the middle. Like I said, it's very sturdy. This is only 4 cords, so imagine if you doubled this with 8 cords, it would be even thicker, and you probably need to add more crown knots to get to an appropriate size loop. So here, once we're done, we fold it over into a loop, and then we're also going to seal with a gathering knot. So taking another strand of cord, 40 or 50 centimeters long, placing it through. Then we're going to snip it off. And yeah, this is the crown knot loop. And then last but not least, this is the most simple one. If you just want to make a very basic plant hanger and you just need a very simple basic loop. All you have to do is take your strands of cords. Now I'm using 3 strands here at about 120 centimeters long for this demonstration, but we find the middle, we make a loop, and all we have to do is make either a gathering knot or just a simple overhand knot will do. So take the loop end through, see how big of a loop you want, and then we just tighten it. And now we have a nice simple loop you can start with for your pattern. And that concludes our 5 ways to start a macrame plant hanger without a ring tutorial. I really hope you guys learned some new techniques on how you can create loops and handles with just knots and without having to use a ring. Not only will you save on cost on having to purchase rings, but you also may get a more organic feel to your plant hanger since it's knotted all the way through from start to finish. If you guys have chosen a way to start your plant hanger but you don't know where to go from there and you want some tips on how you can design some plant hanger posts or the plant pot holder at the bottom, we do go over how to create your own macrame designs over on our BOCHIKNOT community on Patreon. If you guys are interested in learning more, head on over to patreon.com/BOCHIKNOT for more details. As always, thank you guys for watching and I'll see you guys next time.